What do most Fortune 500 executives have in common? After more than 150 conversations with executives from companies like Disney, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, I've learned that sports is a common denominator. Some of our guests' athletic experiences earned them a place in their sports hall of fame, like Chick-fil-A chairman Dan Cathy. Some hung up their cleats after high school, like Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian, while others, like Condoleezza Rice, claim they weren't that great in their sport. But no matter their skill level, they have all told me that being a part of a team taught them leadership lessons that they still use today. In partnership with Chief Executive Magazine, I'm your host, Don Yeager, here to give you an all-access pass to genuine, authentic, fireside chat-like conversations with today's business icons so that you can create powerful change in your organization. This is Corporate Competitor Podcast. With me for today's episode is John Gordon, husband, father, and author. His best-selling books and talks have inspired millions of readers and audiences around the world. He is the author of the timeless classic, The Energy Bus. He's also written The Carpenter, Training Camp, The Power of Positive Leadership, The Power of a Positive Team, and his latest book is The One Truth. In the world of speaking and writing, I have a lot of colleagues that I have gotten the chance to work with over the years, and John is one of my absolute favorites to both read and listen to. When he's not running through airports or speaking to businesses, hospitals, or schools, you can find him playing pickleball and taking long walks, which are when he gets most of his ideas. John believes in keeping his bio short because his past accomplishments are meaningless. What matters most is that he says something today that will inspire you to take action tomorrow. Be sure to visit corporatecompetitorpodcast.com/notes to access our revamped downloadable PDF. This resource now includes my favorite quotes from today's episode, along with a practical leadership exercise designed to help you implement today's key lessons in 5 minutes or less.
Just go lead. I would not be who I am today if I didn't play sports. Your value must come from who you are on the inside, not what anyone says about you. Mike Levine played with me and I played with him at Cornell. We were teammates. And Richie Moran said to us, you weren't chosen to be a captain, but I know you guys are the leaders. So I need you guys to lead this team this year. When he said that, I'm like, you're right. You don't need a title to be a leader. You just got to lead. Just go play. Just go do what you do. We're going to go create our success from the inside out.
John, thanks for joining us.
Don, love you. Always great to be with you.
Man, I have been a fan of yours for many years, and of all the people that I get a chance to read and listen to, you're constantly inspiring to me to want to continue to try to do more. So thank you for all you do in this community of people who want to grow.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate you so much.
So you've written 28 books, crazy, so many of them bestsellers, but you have said that your newest book, The One Truth, is your most important book. What makes this book so important to you than even many of the other bestsellers and things you've written?
It's so different than all my other books. My other books were fables and how to, and this is really a book about a paradigm shift in terms of understanding mental toughness, mental health, mental well-being. It's not just about being positive, but it's why positivity works. When I first came up with the ideas and it was coming to me on a walk, I was literally downloading these concepts. It was coming to me. Everything comes down to oneness and separateness in our lives, in our relationships, in our organizations, and also psychologically in our own minds. So when we feel one and connected, we feel powerful. A team that is a united and connected team is a powerful team. A team that is divided and separate is a very weak team. The Greek word of anxious means to separate and divide. So when you feel anxious, you actually feel separate and divided. All mental health disorders report feelings of isolation, being alone and separate, disconnected. And the more separate they feel, the weaker they feel, and the more negative they feel. When you go from oneness to separateness, you go from positive to negative.
Right.
The brain is an antenna tuning into either a positive frequency or a negative frequency. Your brain has 86 billion neurons. So you have all these little antennas in your brain making up one big antenna. When you nourish the antenna with positive thoughts, with a healthy diet, with great habits, that antenna actually will tune into more positive thoughts. And then you can see on the flip side why so many are struggling with their mental health based on the foods they're eating, the alcohol, the drugs, and the damage to the antenna is now causing that antenna to tune into more negative thoughts, which leads to poor mental health. Have you ever noticed that overthinking is always associated with negative thoughts? We never say, I have too many positive thoughts.
Exactly. Let me think all night long about something really good.
Doc, I just have too much gratitude. I got too much joy. I am thinking just too much about my happiness. No, it's always associated with negative thoughts because that's what negative thoughts do. And as I'm sharing them with different coaches, like we know Doc Rivers, I was sharing with Damian Lillard, I was sharing with all these different athletes and coaches of all these different teams, Sean McVay, Matt LaFleur. I was like, I got to tell you this concept, tell you these ideas. They were really resonating with it. And they said, wow, this makes a lot of sense. Like, this is the key. I'm like, I know. I talked to a 16-year-old. He was in the ER 2 nights before our conversation. He was suicidal. He was a world-class athlete, had it all, wealthy family. And I taught him what was in this book. 1 2-hour session of just talking with him, turned him around. His parents said, what did you do? Because he was fine. I said, I just shared with him the truth. Reached out to him a year and a half later, just recently. How you doing? Doing great, Mr. Gordon. High state of mind.
Mm.
I've done this a number of times since with these teenagers. And that's when I knew, okay, it's saving lives. I've got to write this book.
Mm.
This is a book that I am meant to write for these times. That's why it's so special. That's why it's so important.
So when you start talking about oneness and separateness, if you're talking to one of these people, if you're talking to somebody who's listening right now who feels some of that separateness, is there something that you would counsel them on? Just something where you'd say, here's a way that you pull your way out of that separateness and you start finding others with whom to be one?
I would first ask them if their negative thoughts come from them. Probably yes, they're in my head.
Right.
Next question would be, who would ever choose to have a negative thought?
Right.
Would you ever choose a negative thought? It comes in from consciousness. It comes in from a spiritual place. You would not choose that thought, but then you believe it. Then you reinforce it. Then you speak it out loud. And now it does become a part of you. It becomes a part of your pattern because you believe the lie in the first place. And now you feel guilt and shame. Now you think something's wrong with you. And now you feel broken. What is brokenness but a separation? We know that wholeness is the intention. And that tells us that when something breaks, the goal is to get back to wholeness and healing. You're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. This is part of life. This is part of the ebb and flow of thoughts. Realize you're not broken. And that's what happened to that 16-year-old. He thought something was wrong. He thought he was broken. And once he realized he was fine, once he realized he was normal, that this is part of life, everything changed because he stopped beating himself up for the thoughts.
Mm.
And relationships are a big part of that journey as well. When you can actually join with other people in community and in connection, healing takes place. When you bring a team together that really loves each other, that love actually leads to healing. Relational psychology says you heal in a loving relationship. So I've been asked, can you heal at work? Yes. If there are loving relationships there, can you heal as part of a team? Oh, yes. We've seen it. I know you have, and I've seen it. Yes.
You know, one of the things I love about this book, this is really your story.
Yes.
This is the journey of John Gordon. You are open with the idea that you are a negative person and you've found this new path. Can you share a little bit about how you learned some of these things? I mean, was this just life trial and error? Was it research? How did you begin your journey into this space?
It started with me wanting to get better myself.
Mm-hmm.
And then it moved towards me wanting to help others get better because I was really negative. because I was really depressed, because I was anxious, because my wife was going to leave me if I didn't change. That's how negative I
That
was.
would have been some separateness, by the way.
Very separate, very disconnected. We were not one team.
Yeah.
We were not a united team. And I was a jerk. And I was telling her that she was the problem, why I wasn't living my dreams, why I wasn't living up to my potential, blaming her. When she gave me that ultimatum, that was like a huge wake up call. Okay, I got to become more positive. How do I do that? I've got to change. How do I do that? And I began researching all the ways that I could be more positive during the emerging field of positive psychology, very emerging field. So I began taking these walks of gratitude every day. The research shows you can't be stressed and thankful at the same time. So every day I'm taking this walk of gratitude and I'm trying to feel blessed instead of stressed. Don, I'm telling you, literally, like within a week, I noticed a difference. Within a month, big difference. I've been doing this now 20 something years. And then I thought about how I start to pray more. Prayer really connects you to your creator, creating oneness instead of separateness. That was a big part of my journey as well, is that prayer that created this one spirit with me and the creator. And from that one spirit, there's a renewal of your mind and your soul that happens. There's an uplifting of your mind and your soul in those moments of prayer. And you know, with the energy bus and training camp and these other books, I've been teaching how to be more positive all these years.
Yes.
And then when I was receiving these ideas for the one truth, it became even more and more understandable about why this made sense of why this works. Now, there's a guy along the way, Garrett Kramer, who wrote a book, Still Power. He works with a lot of PGA golfers and hockey players because he's a golfer and a hockey player. Really has a brilliant understanding of high state of mind and low state of mind. He taught me that in terms of high state and low state. Like he says, okay, draw two circles, which I put in the book. One with 1,000 dots, one with 3 dots. Which mind will perform at a higher level, the 1,000 or the 3? And everyone says the 3. We all know that intuitively. And he taught me about how there's this high state, which is less dots, more clarity, more focus, more positivity. The one with all the clutter is a lot of thought, a lot of fear and worry, anxiety and doubt. And then as I share in the book, you're in traffic one day and it bothers you. The next day you're in the same traffic and it doesn't. Is it the traffic making you feel a certain way? No, because if it was the traffic, you'd feel the same way all the time.
Right.
It's never the circumstance. It's always our state of mind. When your state of mind is low and the circumstance happens, it's going to bother you because you're looking at the circumstance, thinking the circumstance has power over you. When your state of mind is high, same circumstance can happen, but it doesn't because you realize you have power over your circumstance because it's your state of mind. It's never the circumstance. Don, millions and millions of people are always looking at life and looking at the circumstance, blaming the circumstance, thinking it has power over them. And guess what? I do too sometimes. I'm on a phone the other day as I'm walking through LA and a big bus drove by really loud, interrupted my conversation, and I yelled at the bus.
As if that was going to do you any good.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, John, did you just yell at a bus? I said to myself, like, are you crazy? You know this. You know it's not the outside.
Yeah.
And yet it looked that way in that very moment and it bothered you. A baseball batter getting up to bat. Are you looking at the crowd or are you looking at the ball?
Right.
Outside versus inside. And there's so much power inside out instead of outside in. So Garrett taught me inside out, high state of mind. I give him credit in the book on that.
How awesome is it that you have this paradigm shift for yourself and your ability to share it with other people at a most incredible time in history when we have never felt more separate and where oneness has never been more needed than what we as a world and a society are going through today.
Don, the book is impacting a lot of people, but I think it's maybe sold about 30,000 copies right now. I got to get this book out there in the world because you're right. This was a book that was written for a time such as this, right here, right now. The pandemic really made people feel alone, disconnected. And now we have more fighting politically than ever, more division in the media and social media. People blame social media, but it's not social media. It's the separateness that's the problem. It's the vision that's the problem. Because we can use social media to unite.
Absolutely.
And to connect, which many people do. We can use the media to unite and connect by telling stories of hope. We can use books like yours to bring hope and inspiration to others. We have that choice right now in this history. So I feel like, yeah, I was meant to write this book. It was given to me to write it at this point, especially with so many suffering.
Yeah.
And when you understand how this works and you read this book, you will be on your path towards that. And that's my goal. Now, are you still going to wake up at times feeling a little negative and down at times? Of course.
Are you still going to yell at the bus?
Yes. Did I have a day of overwhelm the other day and felt down? Yes. But I know what's going on now. And I see why it's happening. And I have awareness of it. And now I can actually implement the tools to get myself back there. And I love speaking to professional athletes about this because, man, when you see the light bulb go off in their head and they're like, I've known this
intuitively,
it makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Everyone knows this. It just makes so much intuitive sense that when you're reading this, you're almost being reminded of the truth instead of learning the truth, which I love because deep down, the truth is already written in our heart and our soul. We already know it. And then when we read it, it confirms what we already know.
You know, we've talked a little bit about teams here. I know you've been helpful to and in the presence of some extraordinary teams. Clemson's national championship football teams with Dabo Sweeney, Sean McVay, you mentioned him, and the LA Rams Super Bowl team. You've been around some great teams, and you often write and talk about the idea about the importance of a team loving each other. Too often we think, oh, well, of course they love each other. They won the championship. What can you share with us about how to build love within your team?
I don't think all teams do love each other.
No, it's true.
Most great teams today, to accomplish something, there has to be a strong connection that generates commitment. You'll never have commitment without connection. So the more connected we are, the more committed we will be. What does love do? Love creates connection. Connection creates that clarity on a team and a commitment. That creates confidence and that creates courage. We love each other. Now we have the courage to go for it together. We're not worried about ridicule. We're not worried about messing up. We're not worried about you yelling at me if I make a mistake because there's love there and there's connection, there's commitment. We're now courageously going after it together and we're fighting for each other instead of against each other. So in the workplace, it's all about relationships. Like, do you care about me? Do I care about you? And do we have trust? Is there a bond of trust? Is there respect? And of course, is there love? Like, are we willing to fight for each other and sacrifice for each other and serve each other and commit to each other? And when you are and you're willing to do that and you do that, then the team becomes so much stronger. And now the work team gets better ideas and unleashes incredible ingenuity and work ethic. And you're working on projects longer and you're fighting against the competition together, where you're working to create this incredible new product launch. Whatever it may be, you're just working in that capacity together. That's what leads to amazing success. And not enough work teams focus on love and engagement. And just look at the Gallup engagement survey. What does it involve? Do I have a best friend at work? Does my manager care about me? And are they interested in my growth? Questions like that go to what? Love and relationship.
Right.
And care.
And those numbers are all in the low 20s or less.
Oh, yeah, because there's no engagement at work, because there's no relationships at work. So we do team building exercises a lot of times that we encourage leaders and executives to do with their teams to build the relationship and the connection and the commitment. And we always get great stories of how it worked and how it helped them translate this dysfunction, changing the dysfunction into more connection, more commitment, and then greater results. So they got to be willing to do it. It's a lot harder to invest in relationships. It's a lot harder to get to know each other. It's a lot harder to build a family. And by the way, family means that we also challenge each other. When you love someone, you're also going to challenge them because you're not going to let them settle for anything but their best. And if they love you, they're going to give their best to you and the team. So that's part of the equation of love and accountability. Accountability is love, and love is holding people accountable. It's about loving each other to produce something amazing together. And you hear it all the time with championship teams. When they win, they say, what happened? We loved each other. What happened? Oh, we were fighting for each other. What happened? Oh, yeah, my brother's on this team. My sister's on this team. We just have a strong bond. That is essential in today's environment to actually win a championship, because you have to have the grit. And what drives grit? Love drives grit. There are a lot of factors, but I'm convinced that love is the greatest factor. Because if you love someone, you're not going to quit on them. If you love what you do, you're not going to quit that initiative. You're not going to quit on that job because you love it. You'll keep working to become great at it.
John, I'm guaranteeing that you hear this from business leaders. I know how often you're in front of them. It's the great question of the moment when we start talking about businesses and teams. We're talking about wanting to feel love, feel connected. And yet we're also looking at workforces that are increasingly spread out. You're no longer in the same building. You're not at the water cooler anymore like we used to be. Or when you get that question, if we decide to have a distributed workforce, we're not going to put everybody in the office 5 days a week anymore. How do we build love? How do we build that connection?
It's harder. And I'm honest, it is harder when it's not personal or in person.
Right.
You have to have these online conferences, these video conferences with your team. And every quarter, every so often, do some team building, even virtually, using this great technology. I did it with UCLA football during the pandemic. I took them through some exercises to help them become a more connected team during the pandemic. And it worked. I did this with a ton of teams during the pandemic and online, and it works. You could still do it. It was powerful to see that there were people crying through the exercises that we did. Like, here's one hero hardship highlight. You get your team on. All right, guys, we're going to get to know each other a lot better. We're going to do a fun exercise on team building. Who's your hero? What's a hardship you faced that made you who you are today? And what's a highlight that you're proud of? If you want to add a fourth H, what do you hope for? You want to have some fun? Fifth H, what's hilarious? Each person goes around and shares. You do that, even virtually, even via Zoom, video conference, you're going to get to know each other a whole lot better. And we have developed some really connected teams during that time. And Don, it was during the pandemic where Amy Kelly, who is a leader on our team, and I have a new book coming out with her called Difficult Conversations Don't Have to Be Difficult. She said, what would happen if we actually did this ourselves during this time and we showed the world what it looked like? Let's eat our own dog food. And so we basically began having these weekly team meetings together as a team. And we came out so much stronger from the pandemic by having these virtual connections. If you're a leader, connect with one person on your team a day in a meaningful way. FaceTime with that one person a day, 5 to 10 minute conversation. How you doing? What's going well? What's not going well? What can we help you with? What could I do better as a leader? How can I improve my communication with you? Anything you want to share personally? Anything you're struggling with that I can help you with? You have this 10-minute conversation or more, but just say you're going to schedule 10 minutes. It goes a little longer, great, with that person. The next day, a different member of your team. You do this with one team member a day. You're going to develop great connections with your team members. And then you have this group gathering with your team. We've got to be intentional about connection. And guess what? This virtual technology allows us to do it. And it can actually be more powerful than not doing it at all in person. Because you can be in person and not connect.
Right. Oh, boy, that is such an important line. Because too many people think, well, we're not connected because we're not in person. No, you're not connected because you're not attempting to be connected.
The only time you are connecting is at the water cooler, and you might be talking about, gossip.
Right.
How many people live in the same household, families,
and aren't connected
and don't connect? How many husband and wives feel like they're a million miles apart in their relationship, and yet they're even sleeping in the same bed? My wife and I wrote a book called Relationship Grit. It's about coming together and developing that grit, and connection is a huge part of it. I came home from a trip recently. My wife's like, I don't feel very connected to you. Let's go for a walk. We went for a walk together, and we felt so much more connected as a result of that.
Right. And that's the real key.
As Mike Smith said in You Went in the Locker Room First, the book we wrote together, he would walk around the locker room and see who was disconnected, who was not part of the team, who was doing their own thing. He would watch the chemistry, and his goal was to bring them back into unity to be one team.
Yeah. John, when we first started talking about you joining us on this podcast, I shared with you the premise. A disproportionate number of executives, leaders in the world of business actually have a background in sports, taught them things, made them better leaders. Your first words out of your mouth were, that's my story. You grew up in Long Island, Smithtown East High School. You're a football, basketball player there. And You almost quit lacrosse, but a coach poured into you that actually made you not just a good enough lacrosse player to do well there, but it actually took you to college.
That's why you're a great writer, Don. That's why you are the legend at what you do and who you are, because you did your homework knowing my story. That's pretty cool that you know that. Yeah, it was Tony Chiazza who changed my life. He believed in me. He said, "You're going to play in college one day. You're going to play in the Ivy League." I couldn't even catch and throw.
The creme de la creme of lacrosse.
I couldn't even catch and throw. And yet, this is what he's saying to me in ninth grade. So I stay with it and wind up getting recruited to play at Cornell University for Richie Moran, the legendary lacrosse coach. The Hall of Fame is named after him.
Yep.
And the experience changes my life forever. I would not be who I am today if I didn't play sports. I love that this is the premise of your podcast because that's what it's all about. I meet so many leaders who played sports. You learn about teamwork.
Mm-hmm.
You learn about culture. You learn about overcoming adversity and challenges, and you learn grit and resilience. When I wrote The Energy Bus, it was rejected by over 30 publishers, and I was told to give up. It's not going to happen. But I couldn't give up because I had my vision and mission. And I go back to being an athlete, having my vision and mission to be the best I could be, to be a starter, to be on the team, to play in college. And I was told so often, especially in football, oh, you're not going to be able to do that. You only do that. That won't happen. I was rejected a lot. People didn't see my value, didn't see my worth. Your value must come from who you are on the inside, not what anyone says about you. And never let the opinion of someone else define you. You define you by your grit, your work ethic, and you move towards your vision, towards your goal. You don't listen to what they think. You listen to what God says about you and what God's plan for you is. Mike Levine is now one of the top leaders of CA Sports, he and Howie. Mike Levine played with me and I played with him at Cornell. We were teammates.
Wow.
We were seniors. And Richie Moran said to us, I need you guys to be leaders. You weren't chosen to be a captain. The players chose the captain's popularity contest.
Mm-hmm.
But I know you guys are leaders. So I need you guys to lead this team this year. We weren't given the title, but coach told us he wanted us to lead and we needed to be leaders. Years later, Mike is head of CA Sports and I teach leadership and have written numerous books on leadership. So you can look back and say, wow, what a great lesson he was teaching us and talking to us about. You don't need a title to be a leader. You just got to lead, and you lead from where you are. I think I might have been mad that I didn't get chosen to be a captain, but at the same time, when he said that, I'm like, you're right. Just go lead. Just go play. Just go do what you do. And to this day, it's like, no, we're not going to worry about the circumstance. We're going to worry about the outside forces. We're going to just go do what we do. And we're going to go create our success from the inside out.
What a gift from a great coach. You don't need a title to be a leader. Don't care that the popularity contest wasn't yours. We need you to step in, step up. Wow. I love it. I love it. John, how best can they connect?
You can reach out at johngordon.com, Jon.
Don't put an H in there, dang it.
Don't do an H. I love hearing from people. So yeah, johngordon.com. And then also Twitter, Instagram at JONGordon11. Of course, I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook as well. You can find me there. Yeah, just connect with me at any of these places. I'm just passionate. We're doing day of development events now, several around the country where we're sharing mindset, leadership, and teamwork, taking leaders through these principles of how to actually develop a more positive mindset, how to be a better leader, how to build a stronger team, and a full day program. So it's a lot of fun. We've been doing it, and the response has been pretty incredible. I've been doing this for a long time now, and my heart is, okay, you've built up this platform. You've sold 5 million books. Now it's time to really develop others, to really have the ripple effect of we're going to really change the world by making sure that we develop great leaders and build strong teams. And if we can do that together, that's how we improve this country going forward. It's how we improve our teams, our organizations. And it's all about making sure we're doing that. So I know you're doing that as well, Don. And I'm just glad to be your teammate on this journey of just making people better, because that's what it's all about.
Jon Gordon, thank you today for being a corporate competitor with us.
Love that concept, corporate competitor. That's awesome.
I think you can see why I am such a Jon Gordon fan, why I love his work and have enjoyed watching it over the years and have enjoyed our personal interaction and friendship. 3 lessons that really stood out to me from today's conversation was as he talked about his new book, The One Truth, separateness and the importance of mental health and how important it is that you understand how you talk to yourself and how you think about yourself. What are the words you use and the ways that you have those conversations? It's important that we are more intentional, more gauged as we do those conversations with ourselves. My second great takeaway, I've known this about him for years, but until hearing him talk about it today, it really stood out. He's well known for his walks of gratitude. He talks about them a lot in his work, where he actually takes time to walk and think about what he is grateful for. And it reminded me that I need to do more of that more often, to remember my blessings. You can't be negative and have gratitude at the same time. What a powerful discussion that was. And then finally, I loved the discussion and the advice he gave us for those who are leading distributed workforces, where we're not all in the same office every day, which we used to think was so important in order to build culture and camaraderie. He talked about staying connected through virtual conversations that ask to talk about a hero, a hardship, a hope, and something that's hilarious. When you get into those kinds of conversations, you find common ground, you find things that you wouldn't have otherwise gotten to know about each other. All of this has to be intentionally done. What great lessons. John made me a better leader today, and I hope he made you a greater corporate competitor. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a rating and review on Apple and Spotify. Feedback helps us spread the insights of our guests to a wider audience. It actually increases our ratings. Thank you so much for those who have done so in the past. And catch new episodes every Wednesday. Subscribe at corporatecompetitorpodcast.com to be the first to get a chance to listen. And as a thank you gift, I will send you a chapter from one of my best-selling books. Stay connected with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. My handle is @DonYaeger, DonYaeger. And until next week, I appreciate you.